Okay, so we is back, and we's going to talk about the second half of Crosswords. And we're actually spending a lot longer on Crosswords, but that's because, well, A, it's the newest season, and B, it really did revitalize the Digimon's presence
hmm
a lot more than its predecessors did, ever since Tamers, basically. Um, So next we come to the Death General arc of
The Evil
Crosswords.
Kingdoms and the Seven Death Generals.
But everyone just calls it the Death General arc, really, because
hmm
we're not gonna say that whole name. Um, and right off the bat, again, we start really strong. Like the world is in turmoil. Uh,
It's no longer split into 100 pieces and it's
yeah,
been reformed into seven kingdoms.
basically, all the Digimon are more or less enslaved. Each area is ruled by a death general. However, the Takumon's dead at this point. By the way,
He died at the
um,
first
yeah,
series.
yeah, and what you call
Lilithmon is
it?
still around, I think.
Yeah, Lilithmon's still around. She's only the really one around from the original three. Because the head doesn't really count anymore. He didn't count for like,
He can't really fight when he's just ahead.
yeah, he never really counted. Apparently, he's supposed to take like hundreds of years. He can regrow his body back from the gems.
hmm
He was really fucking. He was the Edamon kind of this
He
of this
kind of
show.
was.
But I mean, he wasn't annoying like Edamon was, and he still kind of had a he still had a little bit of a presence without being annoying later on.
Yeah.
Um, so Lismon's still there. She's as sassy as ever, but she's more or less kind of commentary just observes things. Well, the new generals kind of like take up the reins for actually enforcing and dealing with things.
The series is structured very differently to the first one. It's essentially a boss rush. They spend I think 3 episodes on each boss character. They'll come to the world, then they'll spend an episode either evading or fighting the boss character, then they'll defeat them in the third episode,
Mm-hmm.
generally without fail. And
I think some of the later ones though had a lot more
yeah,
episodes in them though.
hmm
But definitely, like for the first half of them, it was definitely 3 episodes they win, 3 episodes they win, 3 episodes they win.
yeah. And
Uh
mhm.
oh, what were you gonna say? Sorry.
uh, don't know. I was just gonna say like there were like seven kingdoms, which were like some of the zones that were expanded, and they just had to capture each kingdom. And in this series, Kiriha and
Nene.
Nene are not villains, but they're now on Taiki's side.
They're
And
basically all outcasts right now, like hiding in the shadows, trying
yeah,
not to get caught. Again, the world's like in
Taiki,
turmoil.
I think Cosmos has the time thing in the digital world, so Taiki went back to the human world, but
Mm-hmm.
he's been away a good few months from the digital world's
No,
perspective, even
he
though
he
he
was
was,
gone like 3 days in the human world or something like that.
yeah.
And I think I remember Kira said how long they were gone. I don't quote me on this. You can definitely look it up probably.
Mhm.
But they were gone for like some. I think he said like 6 months
Yeah, it
in the
was a
digital
while.
world. They were gone for a long, long time, where
hmm
while everything was going to shit. Um. So yeah, Crosswords has the basis that uh, Digimon time runs a lot faster than human time. Again,
Which Adventure
like
and
adventure.
Frontier also had that.
But Frontier also had kind of that weird issue where he went back, but like days didn't really pass at the same time. Where even like a couple hours in the human world should have been at least a couple days, but he basically got back like the next day.
That was a weird one.
Um, but again, I'm talking about Frontiers. So we start with the Death Generals. The first Death General they fight was this dragon thing that I can't remember.
hmm
His name is really generic, actually, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I don't remember what his name is. Another one was
I don't remember all of
I don't
them.
remember all of them, but another one was the pirate guy that where
Oh,
he
Pokemon.
kind of wasn't evil. He just did evil things.
Yeah,
Like that one was pretty weird. But
I
people,
liked.
Olegmon was his
Yes,
name.
Pokemon.
That one was weird. Did you like him a lot? I didn't particularly
I
like him.
liked him.
A lot of people really did though.
Hmm.
Um.
There was Splashmon, who was
Oh yeah.
a loner and
Well,
didn't have any.
yeah. One of my friends really liked her. Jesse knows who that is too. The friend. She really liked him too a lot. I don't know why.
Apollomon was
Oh,
one of the more interesting ones.
Apollomon was probably the most interesting out of all the Death Generals. And
Yes.
again, he was kind of meant to be the heartbreaker thing too. He was basically supposed to be kind of like the Bancho Leomon of this series.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because just delve into him a little more, because he was one of the longer ones too
Hmm.
that took to be defeated. It wasn't just 3 episode thing. Um, the thing about him that made him also too really interesting was that he truly wasn't evil. He was forced to be evil. It wasn't like Olegmon where it's I don't really think it's evil. I'm just kind of doing what I like to do. Um, I mean, but that still didn't justify anything. But Apollomon actually truly tried to fight being evil. He didn't want to be evil.
He was
He
self-harming because he was
Yeah.
emo.
Yeah, and there was a lot of jokes that that you're pretty fucking emo, that you basically want to hurt yourself kind of thing, and that's really sad because he's a really cool looking character,
Yeah.
and his good side was a really nice guy.
Hmm.
And in fact, without his good side, Taiki and the others actually would have been defeated without the help of his good side. Basically holding back the evil version of himself, where Taiki and them could finish him off.
Hmm.
Again, he was meant to be like the Leomon moment
Yeah.
of the show.
He was a bit lion-like.
um, and the other weird thing is we actually see his previous form in the show. We see Coronamon, rather like a third of the way through the first arc. I
Coronamon
think,
and Lunamon
and
made it,
Spadamon.
and Spider-Man just because they were cameos because they were
They were
the
from the game at the time, the PSP game, right?
it
Something
was DS, I think, the
DS.
Digimon World Dawn and Dusk.
Oh yeah, Dawn Dusk. But Spider-Man wasn't in Dusk. Spider-Man was from a PlayStation one.
Yeah, and that's why they made it in, and they were pretty cool, I guess. But
But I still think that's kind of interesting because we never really see like villain characters like their previous forms really.
hmm.
Uh, or even we don't even really see like other forms of main characters Digimons.
Yeah,
At least not in the current season. We don't see their like other forms, even though they're kind of supposed to be many Digimon
yeah.
of all of them. Um, so I can't remember any of the other ones right now. We said like 4 or 5, right?
I can remember Neo Vandemon, who was boring. I can remember the tiny guy who was kind of fun, I guess.
The tiny guy. You mean tiny
Yeah,
guy?
I can't remember his name, but he was just really small and really evasive because of it.
I don't
But
remember.
like the Death Generals weren't really what the series was about, though. The main villains that mattered the most were Bagramon and Yu.
Yeah. Well,
I think,
Baggerman and his brother, dun dun dun, Dark
yeah,
Knightmon.
Yu is what you get when you. Yu is what they got when they tried to do Ken again and they pulled it off.
But he wasn't that good a character.
I liked him.
In
But I liked him in Hunters a
in
bit.
Hunters, he was a lot better. To
Yeah.
me, he was a lot better in Hunters. Like if Hunters focused on him and not the new retards, that would have been a lot better.
I said once, Hunters is imagine Zero Two, but the only characters were Taichi, Daisuke, and Ken, and you'd have Hunters.
Mm-hmm. Um. So yeah, well, that's true. Like you said, it was they're not the main purpose. The main purpose was basically doing the boss rush, kind of like you said, and heading towards, the ultimate boss, which is supposed to be Bagramon.
And also going more powerful as they went, unlocking the Super Evolution and the double cross and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which were kind of neat.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, but seeing the Choshinka the first time was the biggest wow moment.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing because normal Digivolution was not a thing until then.
Yeah.
They had never used it. In fact, most people thought that it wasn't a thing at all. In in that world, which would be really weird because there are mega level Digimon. We see little Digimon too, so somehow they got to be evolving. But
there wasn't an explanation for that, if I remember rightly. When Shoutmon first evolved, he was like, "Oh wow." Well, Tactimon said, "Oh wow, you're an ultimate level now. It took me hundreds of years to reach my ultimate level." So Super Evolution in Cross Wars is just like aging up a Digimon a few hundred years. However, if you think about that,
well,
it
no,
makes
because
sense.
he trained. He said he trained vigorously to become what he was then when they were fighting Tactimon. Like, I did a lot of work to fucking evolve to what I was.
But if it took him hundreds of years, and because Shoutmon got a bit bigger in Hunters, so you could assume that give him a couple of hundred more years and he would be a Mega Shoutmon. But if you look at Zeke Greymon, he evolves from Metal Greymon, which is a Digicross. So what would that be? Would you just have to leave it Digicross, then leave him to grow to get the Zeke Greymon? That doesn't really make sense.
That would be annoying. Like, they're just stuck in the same body for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Oh, as another thing, just to refer back to the first part, because it was kind of sad when it did happen, and it really solidifies Kira as the asshole. When he basically gave up Greymon and Metal Airdramon.
Metal Birdmon.
Metal Birdramon. Like, that was a really fucked up moment, honestly.
When did that happen?
When they lost or did something, or they like messed up somehow, and Kira just said, "Well, I don't want you anymore." And then those two and Shotmon somehow get separated from everyone else, and they have to do like their own little adventure.
Yeah.
They're like going through the mountains or something, and they fall down. They have to go through some caves and shit.
Yeah, I remember now.
Yeah. That was a really fucked up moment. Back to the second heart. So we learn at the end of near the end at least of the first arc that another humongous villain is Dark Knightmon. Really, he's a super powerful one that you can't really ignore or think lowly of anymore. He's just that strong. And then we have the reveal afterwards. Guess who his brother is? The big baddie Bagramon.
And then he betrayed Bagramon as well.
That was another huge plot point for the second arc. Was that all this time he was actually trying to betray Bagramon, but in the end it still backfired on him. So how did if I remember correctly, it backfired that he actually did kill Bagramon, but Bagramon took over his body in the end, right?
I think so, yeah. And the final cost. To be honest, I don't remember Cross Wars the best out of all the Digimon series. So some information I have on it may be wrong.
Yeah, we'll take all of our words with a grain of salt, if anything, because we're not perfect, and we don't particularly want to spend like hours looking up shit to make sure. But if I remember correctly, that's what happened, because Bagramon is like in his normal form. He gets betrayed, and then surprise, surprise, oh haha, motherfucker! I came back to life, and your body's mine now. And then we come to the big grandiose fight at the end, in the human world, because you always got to finish in the human world.
You always do.
Well, actually, no. Whatchamacallit, Frontier didn't, right?
No, it
Frontier,
did.
it
It
did.
did. Hmm.
I don't remember because the ending was pretty damn quick, actually.
Yeah, it was only a couple of episodes. But no, they did go into the well, like they basically Lucimon just made it into the human world as they defeated him.
Mm-hmm. Um, so there might be a technicality on that, but yeah, you basically always somehow end up in the human world right at the end. Um, so the world, the world starts to go to shit.
Hmm.
What is it? Genjiro and
Akari,
Akari.
Oba.
They notice everything happening.
Yeah.
Like there's some weird shit going on. And then from the sky, like these humongous like red tentacle things start coming out, right? Or not tentacle things, but like this red
Bagamon's
structure
like
start coming
huge
out.
hand and it turns everyone to stone.
Yeah.
And then I don't really remember how it went, just that they used the final cross.
Mm-hmm. And then they did the final cross where literally like all of their
Every Digimon
Digimon.
they met throughout the series did you cross through Shoutmon.
Mm-hmm.
And it
And
was
you could see
so
their like icons and stuff floating around him,
yeah.
right? It looked pretty cool, if
It
anything.
reminded me of Summer Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that?
Yeah. Of
Yeah, it
course, I've seen
reminded
Summer
me of
Wars.
like the final form of Love Machine in Summer Wars.
Mm-hmm. Except for just not a giant bunny blob. um.
It's kind of silly.
Yeah. So I will say I really did like the design of the final cross. It was pretty badass. I mean, it did kind of turn into a giant fight at the end, which is a little disappointing because
It
that's
always
also
does though, doesn't it?
that's also kind of a big cliche in anime kind of things to turn into a giant fight.
Yeah.
I mean, again, they didn't particularly do that in Frontier. They didn't really do that particularly in Tamers either. The mega forms are actually pretty small compared to some of their other forms.
Compared to the D Reaper. Well,
Yeah,
Saint Galgamon is
except for
massive.
Makargamon. He's massive. He's a skyscraper. Um,
Saint Galgamon was the one in Tamers. Mac Galgamon was in Sabers.
um, yeah, whatever you said. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and did they really go giant? I guess they kind of did in Adventure. Kind of
Mm,
did. I
mm,
mean, I don't think Omegamon's that humongous, is he? I mean, Omnimon. Omnimon
that
isn't
was
that
our war
humongous.
game. That Omegamon was not in Adventure.
Who was? How did they finish an adventure? They did some.
Um, they actually just they all evolved to their final forms, either the perfect or the ultimate, and it
Mm-hmm.
just took like one or two attacks from each of them to finish off a Pokemon
Mm-hmm.
because they had the power of friendship or
Mm.
some crap like
Yeah.
that.
So I mean, again, they didn't have to make it a giant battle,
And that was like
but
in space,
mm-hmm.
wasn't in the human world.
Yeah, it was in space,
Hmm.
above the human world.
Yeah,
um.
that was weird.
So I mean, they could have done it in a way where you didn't have to be giants fighting giants.
And
I was a little disappointed.
in 02, they beat him on a technicality.
Technicalities for the win, but we're gonna get to O2 with all the O2iness in it.
Hmm.
But then we still got something else that's really bad after that.
Jeez.
Um, but either way, I think that's it for crosswords at least for the first two,
Hmm.
the actual main two parts of Cross Wars.
Cross Wars, it's the most normal Digimon series. It's probably not a great starting point, but it's a lot more conventional anime than the rest.
It's more solid than a lot of the other ones.
Yeah,
And
it's
again,
conventional but solid.
which is why it placed second for me now because
Hmm.
of how it compares to the other ones a lot.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I never really did we do your opinion on the second arc as a whole?
The second arc, as a whole, my opinion is it is a lot better than the first one. It does require the context of the first one, but otherwise, very solid. On its own, it's like way up there for me. But if I count them as both as one, the first one kind of drags it down a bit.
Mm. And again, no details. Don't know like episode details and stuff like that. I remembered some stuff as we were talking, but I didn't want to really point that out because it would drag it out a little more. So I think that's where we're gonna stop for the Cross Wars stuff. An amazing season. Even if it's not the best place start, you should always start with adventure.
Yes, I
You
would
should
agree.
always start with adventure. But if anything, if you want to, I think you could actually jump into Cross Wars after adventure, because it follows kind of the same formula and it's really
Mm.
solid compared to Adventure's actual sequel.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, you'll have that. So we'll stop for the crossword stuff, and then on the next part, we'll be going into um, we'll actually be going into O2.
Okay.
Because O2 is actually kind of a controversial one, even though it's agreed upon by most people that it is definitely not the best season.
Hmm.
But there are things about it that we will talk about.
Some
So
people are okay with it, some people hate it.
yeah, so we'll get into that one in the next part. So I'm gonna pause for now.